But anyway, so listen, absolutely welcome everybody. Delighted to be here. As Paulina said, Keel is actually the Irish for common sense, and that really is my ethos and approach. I worked for years in multinationals, trying to do that double jobbing of, being a worker and being a mom and coming home and rolling up your sleeves and trying to get absolutely everything done. So I understand the pressure of it, and that really is the way I approach things now. So it's really about small changes, and that's the objective of today's talk. It's about starting small, and we really want to make those changes lasting. I meet lots of people every week who say, I know what I have to do actually, but it's doing it. That's the challenge. I don't know how to do it. I'm overwhelmed. I'm too busy. I just don't have time, and I just don't have the energy. So really what I'm hoping for you today is that you're going to get some of those small tips on things that you can take on with how you live now. And really it's because it's about driving consistency more so than anything, especially when we talk about our health and our diet. And it's what we do most of the time. That's more important than what we do some of the time. So really that's the plan for today, and we'll get kick-started. So really, when we talk about our health, and I suppose I have this slide as a baseline for everybody, when we talk about our health, it's multifactorial. And health is different for everybody because we're all different individually and so on. There are many factors that influence our health. Some that we can actually change and make a difference with, and others that we cannot. We cannot change our genetics. We may not be able to change the environment within which we're living, or we may not be able to change the medical services that are available to us. But we certainly can, in most cases, do something about our nutrition, our diet, the food that we're having, and actually our lifestyle as well, and the behaviors that we engage with. So I suppose it's to understand that health is multifactorial. There are some things we can change and some things we cannot. And it's trying to focus on the ones that we can do a little bit with. And even trying to make changes. Most people, when I talk to them, it's really, we have to try and make some type of behavior change. As I said, they know what they have to do, but it's the doing it is the challenge. So, and that can be our challenge. So when we try and engage, I suppose, in more favorable behaviors or habits, that can be better for our health. And the research shows that, and we can see that from it, that health-related behaviors can have a major impact on the largest causes of our mortality and our morbidity. So really what we want to try and do is engage in health-promoting behaviors. And then over the longer term, they actually form habits, and that becomes something that we do automatically. And that's the longer term goal, and that's what the evidence tells us where we want to go to. Just while I think of it, on Saturday with Brendan O'Connor, I'm not promoting anybody here, but Professor Ian Robertson was on. He absolutely had a fantastic segment about building habits. And he talked about, if you want to build a habit of having a piece of fruit at lunch, you have to repeat it 70 to 80 times before the habit actually forms. Really, really interesting. He's a neuroscientist and a clinical psychologist. So it's worth going back and listening to that 20-minute segment. He gives lots of great tips and information around building habits so that they become something that we perform automatically, almost like how we can listen to the radio and drive the car at the same time. And that's really where we want to try and get to as well with our healthy eating. So behavior change is needed. But also within the behavior change, it's important that we want to try and sustain it, because that's what's going to be most beneficial in the longer term. So some things to think about when we think about that. It's important that we make a change, one small change. How many of us have said, I'm going to, on Monday, start eating well, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to start exercising, and actually I'm going to stop drinking as well. Some of us might take on all three at the same time. And by Tuesday, we're flat on our face and nada is happening. So really, it's about taking one small change. One that stretches us a little bit, just a little bit. Something that we won't get overwhelmed with, or something that we have less risk of failing. So taking that one small change and building it in over time, because what we do most of the time, especially from a dietary perspective, is far more important than what we do some of the time. And that's what we're striving for. It's really about setting an achievable goal. I was talking to a woman last week who doesn't eat breakfast. for whatever reason, time seems to be the most common thing for people not eating breakfast. Setting a goal for her to have breakfast 5 days a week is completely unrealistic and not achievable. So what we talked about is she works from home 2 days a week. Maybe on those 2 days, could she try and have a breakfast? What would that look like and how could she actually do that? So it is very important when we're setting a goal that's achievable. 5 days breakfast was never going to work. 2 days, a little bit of a stretch, and it's something that she may be able to do. And we're setting ourselves up for success because if time is the element, she's working from home, she has no commute, she might have a little bit more time. So really, really important when we're looking to make a change and have it sustainable that we're setting an achievable goal. It's also important to realize that you're going to relapse. It won't work every day. Something will go wrong. Life is busy. Something will come left field. A meeting might get thrown in at lunchtime that we hadn't anticipated attending, whatever the case may be. But what is important, we understand why I maybe didn't eat that breakfast I had committed to having this morning, or that lunch that I had said I would do. So what was the cause that threw me off kilter or off my track? Understanding that, accepting it, and then trying to get back on the horse again with your next meal. What is very important within all of that is what is your motivation to make that change? What is my motivation to have breakfast? What is my motivation to make sure that I'm going to sit down and try and have my dinner? What is your why? And your why will be personal to you and only you, and everybody's why is different. Your why might be because maybe my cholesterol is getting a little bit high and I need to maybe reduce certain foods, or maybe I need to eat more foods. Maybe my weight is impacting my health. So maybe there's something I need to do about that. Maybe, my children are quite young and I'm not as physically active as I should be, and I need to keep up with them and I'm not able to at the moment. So whatever your why is, that's front and center. And that will help you get back on the horse again when you fall off, because we all will. And relapse is absolutely normal, but we understand our why it didn't work for today, and then our why of our bigger motivation to get there. The other thing is, in as much as possible, set yourself up for success. And what I mean here, especially from a dietary perspective, is that you take time on your day off or maybe at the weekend. Make a meal plan for those 2 breakfasts or your 5 dinners during the week or your 4 lunches or whatever it is that you want to achieve. Make a meal plan, make a list, go do the shopping. So that day when you come home from work and you're absolutely exhausted, when you open the fridge, that there is something there to have, that there is an option that's going to nourish you. Batch cook ahead, whatever option works for you. It is well worth putting a structure in place that will enhance your ability to succeed. But the structure needs to be flexible because things happen. Days go wrong, but you need to have that level of flexibility. But it is definitely worthwhile setting yourself up for success. And that investment of an hour or half an hour on your day off or your weekend certainly can pay dividends during the week when you're tired and you're absolutely exhausted from work. So let's kick in then what we're talking about. So when we talk about making change, one of the key stumbling blocks for people can be not embracing what's on your plate. And there's multiple reasons for that. One of them is there's lots of negative voices in our heads, and we have to be very conscious of those voices, and they're criticizing us constantly. You shouldn't have eaten that. That meal should have been better. Why didn't you have this? Why are you eating this? You shouldn't be eating this. And this can be very prominent, especially for somebody who would diet and then stop and then start dieting again. And that can be quite problematic. And it can lead to really voices that are not really, really helpful, and, can derail us immediately from wanting to do well and make changes. We can label foods good or bad. Oh, that's a good food, that's a bad food. And therefore we associate our actions and ourselves with the good or bad. So if I ate bad food, then therefore I'm bad or my behavior is bad. So, context matters with food a lot, and we need to be very careful that we don't put food up in a pedestal as being good or bad. And that can cause a restrictive behavior. So sometimes food being neutral can be a better position to start from. Food is more than calories, it's more than macros or protein or something that we track on an app. Some people might find that helpful, but it is much, much more than that. Food is something that should nourish us, provide comfort to us when we need it, provide connection. It's a social thing. It's something that we have with friends and with family. So it's a little bit more than that. So maybe, bringing us outside of what we consider it in a nap can be helpful too. And I suppose swapping a focus onto something that will nourish us can be a better place to be. And aligning to that, I suppose one of the first things I often ask people to consider is, where is your relationship with food? Do you have a guilt-free relationship with food? Do you allow yourself all food? Do you enjoy all foods? Do you eat when you're hungry? Or do you only eat when you're following a plan and you can only eat at a certain time? Do you stop when you're full and you're satisfied? Or do you eat past that? And maybe you don't even know if you've eaten past that. Is your food choice justified? Well, if I do this run or this session or whatever, I can have that. But if I don't, I can't have that food. So be mindful of that. Do you know how you feel? How does the food make you feel? And paying attention to that can be very, very important. And as I said, defining yourself as good or bad, depending on what you've eaten. Or allowing yourself to eat depending on what a nap or a scales allows you to have. So really what we want to, a little bit focus here first, can be beneficial for a lot of people, and getting on the right track to having a more guilt-free relationship with food, because we want to have a more positive relationship with food, that we're eating to get stronger, to fuel whatever exercise maybe we want to do, and maybe to build our health for the longer term. And that's the focus that we want to do. And that's incredibly important, because if it's not there, that can derail really any changes we want to make after that. So if there's work needed here first, certainly there's lots of people who can work with that, and it's important to take that step first before you start making changes. Then I suppose really it's developing a mindset of including rather than excluding. And really there is so much information now available on social media of what we should be eating, of what we shouldn't be eating, what's good for us, what's bad for us. It can be very hard to decipher if you're not somebody who really is involved in nutrition day to day, what really is evidence-based and what's not. And what I find is a lot of people start to take foods out of their diet. Whole food groups, a lot of people maybe don't eat carbohydrates because they feel, I shouldn't be eating carbohydrates. And maybe a different approach could be, rather than excluding a full food group, is including a different type. So maybe from a carbohydrate perspective, we get a more complex carbohydrate, one that is higher in fiber, a browner bread or whatever the case may be, or whole grain varieties, slightly higher in fiber. We won't eat as much, but certainly bring the benefits to us. So really a mindset of including rather than excluding, and reframing when we look at our plate for our meals, what can I add from a positive perspective? And when we look at our plates, what can I add to make sure that there is enough there for me? And the context of that will vary from person to person, because what the amount we need varies on our age, our gender, the level of physical activity we do, our metabolism, and our personal preferences. So if you're somebody who's tired, whose energy is very low, or somebody maybe who is upped their physical activity lately, you might need to make sure that there is enough on your plate to sustain you and nourish you for what you actually want to do. So your meals might need to change, or you might need to increase certain foods. Maybe what can I add to my plate to give it a little bit more colour? And this is a little bit of a challenge for everybody for your next meal, maybe your lunch if you haven't had it, or your dinner. Look at your plate and see, what is there colour there, or is it more of a grey, maybe beige colour, which lots of us often have. And so how do we get colour there? And one of the best ways to add colour is through fruit and vegetables. Fruit and vegetables, great source of vitamins, minerals, polyphenols, antioxidants, and fibre, most importantly fibre, because most of us aren't eating enough fibre. So can I add to my breakfast? If I'm having porridge or cereal, can I add some berries? Can I chop up an apple? Can I add some banana? If I'm grabbing a sandwich at the deli, can I add more salad? Can I add some lettuce, tomato, cucumber? What can I add that'll bring colour to my sandwich? If I'm cooking some pasta in the evening, or maybe some rice, can I throw in some frozen peas or some frozen sweet corn? Frozen, equally as nutritious as fresh. Or if I'm having a snack, can I add a piece of fruit to that? So what can I do to add a little bit of colour to my plate? what can I add to bring a little bit more variety to my plate? And this, can be, we talked about carbohydrates, maybe can I take a brown rice, brown breads, brown pasta, a little bit higher in fiber. And it's those little changes really that can be beneficial for us. The protein, if I'm focused on protein, rather than just having chicken maybe or beef, could I have some fish? Oily fish, absolutely fantastic for our heart health, our brain health, and so on. So could I have some oily fish? Could I add some beans or lentils, a tin of beans or a tin of lentils to my stews or to my curries or to my bolognese or lentils, whatever the case may be. So can I add a little bit of variety, more plant-based protein, all great options. Can I add some nuts and seeds, maybe to my cereal, to my salad, to my, on top of soups or whatever the case may be. So really it's about bringing that little bit of variety to my plate. And what we're looking at overall is what can I do to nourish my body? And our aim is to nourish our bodies and not punish them. Because when we increase the variety of foods, we increase the variety of nutrients that we're actually having. And if your next meal doesn't work, look at your day overall or look at your week overall. And that's the aim. We are not seeking perfection, because perfect eating isn't healthy. We are seeking consistency, that we're trying to do something and we try to do it a little bit more consistent. So really it's that positive mindset, not what can I exclude, but what can I add? And with that, even that mindset change can be very, very beneficial to people, because when you know you can't have something, that's when you want it even more. So let's switch to what can I add to my plate that's going to be enough to nourish me, to color variety, and so on. Then following on from that, what we eat to how we eat, and how many of us in today's busy world really just grab something to go. We gulp and go, we inhale it. We might be sitting at the desk having a meeting. Some of you might actually be doing it now, watching a webinar and eating at the same time. And it happens. It absolutely happens. Or in the evening, we hover over the table and hover over the island, maybe while we hand up food. We have busy lives, and I'm not expecting everybody to make time to sit down for absolutely every meal. I'm a realist, but it is important to try and take some time to sit down and eat, because how we eat is equally as important. It can take up to 20 minutes to register that we're actually full. Now, if we're grabbing and going, most likely we've inhaled whatever is there and we're long gone past the 20 minutes. So we've missed those internal cues of hunger maybe, or satiety, or that we've actually full and we've ate past where we really should be. And really eating of itself is a very sophisticated physiological system with signals for hunger, satiety, the digestive enzymes, all of that whole process. So really consider maybe, when I need to eat, do I let myself get overly hungry to the point that I'm tired and I'm dizzy? Or do I have an inkling now, okay, I'm starting to get hungry now, I need to get up and get something. So it's not letting yourself get too far down that hunger scale, because if you do, most likely you'll overeat. So awareness is a huge part of it here. Taking time when you can to actually sit down and eat can be great. Take a breath or two. Take yourself out of that fight or flight mode. Maybe you're in a meeting, maybe you were rushing around the place. Take a breath or two and just sit down. And it really, really can be beneficial. And if you are one of those people who really inhales your food and it's gulp and gone down, it is important to take time to chew, because the digestive process starts in your mouth and we need to give ourselves the best chance of getting the nutrients out of the food that we're eating. So if you are a fast eater and you have the fork loaded, ready to go, maybe swap hands. Put your fork in the other hand. That certainly will slow you down. Put your fork down between bites, because most of us have the next one ready to go. So that can be a great way to actually slow you down. And really, it's about taking time to tune in. Am I full? Am I nearly full? Am I uncomfortable at this point? And also to the other part of food that I talked about, the social element of it, the connectivity, the comfort, that's all equally as important. So the more time we can take, absolutely, the better. But I'm a realist. I understand we won't have hours every day, but when you can, maybe that one meal a week might be your small change you're going to do from here. Take time, and we're striving for a more mindful eating rather than a mindless eating. And also then just to layer on top of that, we also need to be very aware of all of the external influences that can drive or hamper our internal signals, and influence the amount of food we intake and the type of food we intake. Many of us have habits, and a habit of, at 3 o'clock I have a cup of coffee and a slice of cake, and that's just what I've always done. But do I actually want the slice of cake? Am I hungry for the slice of cake or biscuits or bar or whatever the case may be? So it's understanding, awareness of what your habits are, and maybe a habit needs to change. Well, maybe I'm not going to have the bar of chocolate. Maybe I'm going to have, an apple and some nuts. I'm going to have something else. Maybe I'm not actually hungry and I actually don't need anything at all. So it's that automatic behavior of having something. How do I change that back to something that might be a little bit, I suppose, healthier for me? The availability of food, we know, it's absolutely everywhere. And if you think of safe food, the ad that they're running now at the moment with children in the shops, and how everything is at eye level and it drives certain behaviors. We know we go into a petrol station, all the foods that are there in front of us, they're not the fruit or nuts or any of those healthy foods. It's all of maybe the stuff that's maybe not as healthy for us. So I suppose being mindful of the availability of foods, the TV ads we see on TV that all come on at a certain time, just when we're sitting down with a cup of tea. So, that 9 o'clock cup of tea. If I'm hungry, am I hungry or am I bored? Well, if I'm bored, maybe I need to go do something else and come back. But if I'm hungry, maybe I need to have something. Maybe I'm going to have a protein source with a carbohydrate, maybe some cracker and cheese, maybe some hummus and brown bread or something like that. And then if I still want the chocolate or whatever else afterwards, I'll have it. But I've addressed the hunger first. So it's really understanding and that type of tuning in, being mindful of distractions. We're really not eating in front of a screen can be problematic. Take it you're watching TV. Somebody comes in now. They're asking you a question. You can hear them, and you know that they're there, and you'll probably give them a half-baked answer, unless you actually pause the TV or pause whatever you're watching and you answer them correctly. The same thing happens when we're eating. How many of us get the extra large bag of crisps and we're eating it and we're looking down on who ate the crisps? And it's ourselves, because the brain prioritizes the signal coming from the screen rather than our internal signals of hunger and so on. So it's being mindful of that watching, eating in front of a TV or a laptop or phone or whatever the case may be, taking a break from that can be really beneficial, and tuning into how we eat. And if you're somebody maybe who grew up in the 80s, 90s, there's the whole completion compulsion, where we grew up that you had to finish everything on your plate, because if you didn't, you didn't get what was coming next. And that sort of overrode our own internal signals of understanding when I'm full, I've had enough, and we just finish everything that's in front of us, demolish it. So now checking in, am I full? Have I had enough? And then it's okay to leave something behind. We can maybe reuse it for lunch or put it into something else later on. And it's back to that awareness and understanding those external influences that can really, influence our food intake and the amount that we actually intake. So I suppose what I'm trying to talk about today and give in a short snippet is really an awareness of understanding our relationship with food. Is it guilt-free? Is it a more positive one? Adopting a more of an approach of including rather than excluding, and an including with the name to nourish us and not actually punish us, to take time to eat in as much as what we possibly can, and recognizing that process is very important also. Understanding the external influences and awareness of those and how they can actually influence what we eat. So equally important, understanding it's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not seeking perfection. We're seeking a little bit more consistency. And it's what we do most of the time that's more important than what we do some of the time. It's about taking one small change. Maybe I'm going to put a bit of colour on my plate. Maybe I'm going to have a fruit with breakfast. Maybe I'm going to make sure that I have a breakfast. Maybe I'm going to try and sit down for my dinner once a week, or have dinner with my family once a week. Whatever that one small change is for you, it's about starting it now. We're not waiting until Monday. We're not waiting until the 1st of August. We don't have to wait until then. We can start today if we possibly can, and let's try and build on it from there. Understanding that we will relapse, Absolutely fine. We're going to leave that behind us, understand the why, and then get back again and leave the guilt that goes with it. And knowing also that all of those little changes that we make can really stack to something very, very sustainable over time. And Ian Robertson said the other day, really, the best predictor of success is success. So even taking one small change, succeeding at that, and then building on another, we're most likely to be more successful. So we're starting today. We're not waiting until next week or whenever the case may be. We're adopting the positive mindset and we're getting ready to take one small change. One small, that's all we're asking. So that's it for me. I'm available on Cara Connect. As Pauline said, I work with people one-to-one, and it's really about working with you where you are now and taking a small change and really embedding it in. And questions. So Paulina, have we any questions?
We have a couple of comments, but before we go on to them, I'm going to remind you all that if you're connected to Cara Connect Wellbeing Hub, if your client set up with a Cara Connect Wellbeing Hub, you can book a free session with Marie through your Wellbeing Hub and it will be covered by your employer. If you're not set up with Cara Connect Wellbeing Hub, I suggest you can just email support@caraconnect.com or get in touch with us any way you want to get in touch with us, and we'll share Marie's personal details so you can get in touch with her on your own if that's okay with you, Marie. And maybe we have someone who isn't set up. I see we have a couple of professionals who obviously can't use their company credits because they are professionals, but it could be the case that someone who's not a client might want to get in touch with you.
Perfect.
Um, Recording will be available in the next couple of days, so tomorrow or the day after tomorrow on the Content Hub. And again, the same story. Unfortunately, if you're not set up with the Content Hub, just email us and we will send it to you privately. There is an operational question in the Q&A, and it's more for me than for you, I guess. Hi there, is the presentation available in a printable format? Unfortunately, it's not something we can do operationally because Content Hub doesn't support downloadable materials. But maybe if you're a Cara Connect client, what you can do, if you can type your Wellbeing Hub or like the name of your company in the anonymous Q&A, I'll make sure that Marie is connected. And for printable information, I guess you could just book a session with her and ask any questions you might have and get additional details or even the presentation. So sorry about that. Unfortunately, it's just not something we can do from the resource point of view, but the recording will be available. Okay, so someone said in the webinar chat that I started using a small spoon, small plate to trick me to slow down and have smaller portions. What do you think about that? I think it's a really nice, lovely trick.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose what I would say is the awareness is fantastic. Just make sure the smaller plate, because portions can be a huge thing for people. So if you're having a smaller plate though, is it still enough? Is it satiating? You know, you're not hungry afterwards and it's getting you to the next meal. And if that's the case, absolutely great. And it's back to what works for you. So if it works, absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic. Then we have another kind of question slash comment in the chat from someone who unfortunately had to leave earlier. That's not a problem, by the way. If you have to leave earlier, we totally understand. It's very specific to that person, but I'm going to read it out because there might be someone in the audience, or there might be someone who is watching the recording back to whom it could be relevant. So the person says, I had a gallbladder removed 2 months ago. To my surprise, I'm experiencing no negative symptoms regarding digestion. I eat more or less as I did before the surgery, although I tend to eat rather moderate portions and quite frequently, 4 to 5 times a day. Any suggestions regarding my diet would be welcome.
Yeah, that's a very specific question. And really to give that level of specific dietary advice to somebody, I'd need to sit with them one-to-one because you need to understand what they're eating. Gallbladder, yes, little and often becomes the advice. And you still need to make sure whatever you're having, little and often, you're still getting your nutritional requirements covered. And I know from a fat perspective, that can be a problem. Definitely lesser amounts of that and how you have it and when you have it can be a challenge too as well. But we answer more than that from a specific question to somebody, you'd need to sit with them one-to-one and
Yeah,
understand what they're eating.
definitely. And I'll make sure that you're connected to their company so they'll be able to book further session where you'll be able to talk more about that. Then we have another question in the anonymous Q&A. I think it came a little bit earlier than the question that I read before. So do the same principles apply if you have to follow a more restrictive diet due to health issues, like newly diagnosed celiac, um, need to cut out gluten, or pancreas issues needing a low-fat diet, or does the approach need to be modified?
So, and I'm presuming the approach that I talked about. So if you are a celiac, I'll take the celiac option. Absolutely. You still want to make sure you have a healthy relationship with food, that you allow yourselves a good variety of foods, obviously non-gluten containing. You then may need to include a little bit more than you would have if you weren't a celiac. So, for example, fruit, veg, all can be great options. You have to then seek different types of grains. Absolutely isn't a problem either. And then your protein sources. So yeah, the same principles would apply. You're a little bit more restricted maybe in the type of foods that you can have, but it's very easy to eat well on a gluten-free diet. And actually, I find the Celiac Society in the UK is an excellent resource for people. You don't actually need to sign up as a member, but they have lots of great resources available. So just for that person.
Thank you so much. Then we don't have any more. Oh yeah, we do. Um, can you name any healthy snacks that can keep me away from chocolate? Very relatable.
Okay, well, we're all chocolate fiends one way or another. So what I would say in relation to snacks get demonized absolutely incorrectly. Snacks, it depends on what you're having, but they can be a great way to get more nutrition in, especially for children, older adults, or maybe if you're somebody who's very, very active. And then if we're thinking about snacks, it's always about combining a protein source with a carbohydrate source and a high fiber carbohydrate source. So you could have a brown cracker, brown bread, you could put hummus on it, you could put pesto on it, you could put cheese on it. Now, obviously, people may have limitations with high cholesterol and so on. And it's about combining that carbohydrate with protein. So natural yogurt could be your protein, and you could put some apple or something with it, or some fruit or some berries, or whatever the case may be, a high fiber option there. You could chop up an apple and put some nut butter on it. You could have a handful of nuts and an apple, or an orange or banana, or whatever the case may be. So it's always about combining the protein source with a high fiber source. And the reason for that is because both of those take longer to digest, they're more satiating, so we stay fuller for longer, and they tend to get us through to the next meal. And then if you want the chocolate afterwards, certainly people find in chocolate, maybe if you move towards the darker end, the 70, 80, 90%, it covers the chocolate hit, and you're less likely to eat the full bar. And actually, a great snack I heard lately was dates. Now, I know not everybody likes dates. So if you have a date, fill it with nut butter and cover it with dark chocolate and a little bit of sea salt and into the fridge. Absolutely gorgeous.
What
That's
what are dates? I live in Ireland. I have no idea.
Dates are like plums. Actually, I'm open to correction now here. They're like a dried plum, but they're about that size. And you usually buy them when they're stoned. So they're similar, I suppose. They look a little bit like dried figs. They're a dried brown fruit.
Dried fruit, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually, I must look that up. Our dates, plums. Yeah, but that's and gorgeous. A little bit of nut butter and dark chocolate, a little bit of sea salt. Gorgeous.
Thank you so much. And thank you for explanation for us non-native speakers out there. Then there is another question in the anonymous Q&A that is very interesting. So what's your thought on the injections, Ozempic and so on, if you're not losing any weight when you're trying the normal routes?
Yeah, so again, Ozempic is something that's absolutely all over social media, and the narrative is not necessarily the most positive. Ozempic can be very beneficial to somebody whose weight is impacting upon their health. Absolutely. The thing about it is, I would say, is you do it through your doctor, and you also need to make sure that you make the lifestyle changes, your diet and lifestyle changes in line with it. And that is the best way from a longer term health perspective. Ozempic can be great to reduce food noise, can help people, get that head start, and can be really, really beneficial to people. So absolutely brilliant when it's used the way it should be used, but it's equally important to make your changes with it. Make your dietary changes, make your lifestyle changes, exercise and so on, because the research is showing over 2 years, but with the longer term what's going to happen, that's being assessed. So you want to make sure that if you do get to 2 years, that you have the weight loss, you can sustain it going forward, and you've built in behavior change that allows that to happen.
And I guess the most important part here is to work with a doctor, to actually work.
Work with your doctor and work with a registered dietitian or registered nutritionist to make sure that you're going to, I suppose, build behavior change that will sustain you after.
Thank you so much. Then there's another question in the chat. So someone's asking, is 2 meals a day better than 3 meals?
And context matters here. So if you are, it depends on the person. As I said, what we eat, there are lots of factors: our age, our gender, our stage in life, even our, level of physical activity. So, it really differs person by person. The most important thing about eating is that you eat at a frequent, so your body knows that there's food coming. And then what's on the plate is providing all the nutritional content that you need. Some people might, maybe people who work shift, 2 meals might be what they're having, and that works for them. Other people might never survive on 2 meals and they might need 3 meals. So there's no right or wrong answer there. It's the context of the person and their life that they're living, and then what works for them. I know it's not the answer maybe they want to hear, but it really differs person by person.
I think it's a great answer, because if 2 meals is enough,
That
that's
might be fine. Yeah, and those 2 meals might provide absolutely everything that you need. But if those 2 meals are not two great meals and you're still hungry, and afterwards you're really, really hungry, and you're eating the press is open and the biscuits and the crisps and all of those other things because you were so hungry, then 2 meals probably aren't enough for you and you probably need your 3. We would normally say try and get 3 meals, but it does vary person to person.
Thank you so much. So there are two more questions, and I think they might be in conjunction with each other. So I'm going to read you both, and then you tell me
Okay.
if you think they can be both answered the same way, or if one of them needs more elaboration. So the first one coming through the chat saying, "What is your option on meal drinks like Huel, Y foods?" And the other question, which I think can be about roughly the same things. I'm struggling to eat enough protein. Some quick and easy protein snack options like dairy products or nuts aren't an option for me. Can protein powder be useful here, or how else would you increase protein intake? Because from what I know, like Huel and Y Foods, they're usually position themselves as like very protein heavy. So that's why I kind of thought we could
Yeah.
questions. But
Okay. And similar to the other question, it really depends on the individual. So if you have, we would try and get, in more than supplements, we try and get your nutrition from food, from your meals. Now, that may not be reasonable, or it may not be an option for everybody. So protein powder can be beneficial in that instance and can help you build up to where you actually want to be. So from that perspective, it can be. But it's back to, again, on a case by case basis. So it depends, if it sits in with your life and you're more likely to be able to do it, well, then that might be a better option for you. But I would always say we would try food first, but then understanding that maybe that's not going to work, then maybe the protein powder, the Huel, or whatever the case may be, might be an option for you.
Mhm. And in general, are they okay to take in, I guess?
It depends. It depends on what you're trying to get. If you have somebody who has high energy requirement in that, and can't meet the protein requirements, then that might be something. If you have somebody else who maybe have a different stream who's trying to lose weight, then you might be trying to change their diet in a different direction. If you're trying to build behaviors with somebody and get them cooking, get them planning their meals and doing something, then so it really, really depends on what, and it depends on the different products and the individual themselves. I know I'm not answering your question. It's not straightforward, and food never really is. Context matters. Like, people often say, well, are these not good for you? Like, fruit is not good for me, it's full of fruit. Context matters. Like, fruit, certainly there is sugar in it, but it's natural sugars, but it's also very full of fiber. So fruit is a great option for most people. So it's back to context again.
Thank you so much. Are there any more questions? There is nothing yet in the anonymous Q&A, and or in the chat, and we're pretty much on time. So I think if people don't have any more questions, oh, there is one more. There is one more just came in. I think we still have a couple of minutes, if that's okay with you, Mary.
No problem. Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much, Marie. So, does green tea slash certain teas actually help with metabolism? Does it speed it up or just contribute to normal metabolism? And is fast metabolism actually a bad thing because the nutrients don't stay in your body?
Okay, that's a loaded question. So this whole thing of speeding up your metabolism, again, not straightforward, and it's not something that I think we really can make changes to. Green tea can be a great option. It's full of polyphenols and so on, certainly some level of caffeine in it. So it can be an option for people if they like it. That's what I would say. I wouldn't be drinking green tea to speed up my metabolism. It's not that simplistic that you can eat certain foods that will speed up your metabolism or certain ones will slow them down. A huge component are our genetics. I often say that to people, like, is it 50 to 70% of our weight is dictated by genetics? 80% plus of our height is dictated by genetics. We constantly try and change our weight. We never try and change our height. So, genetics will drive a huge element of our body and the physiology of the body. And, so trying to change it with food, it's not doable in most cases. And it's yeah, I don't buy into this as I said, about your metabolism speeding it up and slowing it down. So enjoy your green tea if you enjoy it, but I wouldn't be drinking it for your metabolism.
Thank you so much. Um, well, okay, there are a lot of questions. There are two more. If we have a doubt about our own metabolism, how can we measure them? Is there any series of test labs that can show it?
Your metabolism.
Yeah, like how do we know? Do we have like slow metabolism, fast metabolism? Is there any way to like take blood test and it will show?
I actually don't know. I don't know, being very honest. I don't know. And if that person maybe pops me an email, will you pop me an email? I'll follow up and check on that and come back to you.
Yeah, sounds like a
Yeah,
great idea. Sounds like a great
yeah,
idea.
yeah,
Let us know again through support@carriagehoneegg.com or the support chat. It's going to be completely anonymous. Like it will ask for your
yeah,
email, but we'll raise all the information immediately and we'll just forward it in
yeah.
an
And I'll
email.
check that and come back to you.
Yeah. So just get in touch with us and we'll put you through to Marie. Okay. Then one of our professionals is asking, other researches around food nutrition for neurodivergent folks, as we seem more likely to have digestive issues, struggle with energy levels. A very good question, I think.
Yeah, there are, and it's not an area that I work in, but there are lots of dietitians who would work in that area because there are they can have certain struggles, and it's a very specific area, and you need to go to somebody who works within that area. So yeah, I had somebody recently look for somebody, and they sent me to they sent me to a dietitian in the UK actually who worked in that area. So yes, there are. Get somebody experienced in that area. That's within their scope of practice, and that's what they work in. Try Indie, the Irish Dietetics website, and you can put in your divergent or whatever the specific area is, and they will give you dietitians who actually work in that area. So it is well worth meeting somebody and spending time with somebody, and they can help with a lot of those things.
Mhm. Fantastic. Thank you so much. There is a comment, it's not a question. It's a comment from another attendee to a person who was asking about the protein drinks. So this person says, I've integrated the new U plan into my diet over the last 10 months and have lost 2.5 stone. They're protein based. So just for someone who is watching back the recording, or maybe for the first person who missed it, I read it out just in case for you to have the information. Someone else from the audience shared their experience. And there is one more question. Is there any foods to help with acne?
Oh, skin health. So it is down to, it's the basic supply from a skin health perspective. Lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of water, lots of fluids, and I would say off the top of my head, omega-3 too as well. So you're looking for, the omega-3s, healthy fats. So, and they are found in salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, and then if you're not going animal based, you could have chia seeds, flaxseed, that type of thing. So incorporating those slowly into your diet will help with the omega-3 intake as well. So lots of fruit and vegetables, and lots of water.
Thank you so much. Um, yeah, I don't think there is anything else yet. And I think it's about time for us to wrap up. So thank you so much, everyone who attended. It was amazing to have you here. Thank you so much for a lot of questions. Thank you so much for a lot of activity in general. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and you know, helping other people too. Yeah, someone saying about the fast metabolism. I think a person with fast metabolism will feel hungry quicker after a meal. Thanks for the session and all the answers. Thank you, everyone. All the people are saying thank you in the chat.
No problem.
You can probably see it. Thank you so much for attending. It was amazing to have you all here. And yeah, the recording will be available in a couple of days. And if you have any questions about anything, absolutely do let us know through the support chat or any way you can get in touch with us. So I am going to wrap up here. So we're going to have another webinar on the 28th of August. It's going to be about emotional regulation. Everything is already on our website. So if you go to caraconnect.com, you'll be able to find it in the events. It's going to be a very interesting one. So I'll hopefully see you there. And bye-bye. Have a great day today.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon.